Hi all, good morning, good evening. Okay, uh, PLSQL basic. Today also it's a free demo session because we wanted to discuss about the basics of SQL before we start the PLSQL. Hi all, hi. Okay, and there was a question about Selenium training. Selenium training starts tomorrow. Okay, all right. So I just want to understand who have joined for the first time today. Are there any new ones who joined today? Okay. Only a couple of them, right? And I hope you have gone through the old videos, the other two videos. Okay. Any questions, any issues on the last two videos that you had before we go ahead with our actual sessions? Okay. All right. So what I suggest is please go through the other two videos because we cannot repeat the same. I would suggest you to go back and look into the two videos, but they were more on how do you what do you say? What is the purpose of having the need of SQL and PLSQL? Okay. All right. So what we will do today is we'll start with the basics of SQL. Okay. So this today is also a demo session, but the actual paid sessions will start from 29th May, and there are 9 sessions in total. By 12th we'll be able to complete, and in case we couldn't complete, we are happy to extend. It's not that we should confine or we should complete before 12. Okay. All right. Now let's go into the actual session. Okay. So now by now you must be understanding what exactly SQL is all about, why this is used. Okay. So before we start, the primary purpose of this training is more on Oracle SQL. Okay. Because this would be a continuation. This would be the basic for the purpose of this course. That's PL SQL. So as I said earlier, PL SQL is specific to Oracle database. Okay. Now, in order to understand, we will have to go through the basics of SQL as well. And on all the members' request, we are doing a couple of sessions on basics of SQL. Okay. I see a hands raised. Okay. What was the question? Had you had a question? All right. Okay. I request all of you to park your questions for the end of the session. Okay. Or once I'm done, I'll let you know. Okay. Then you can post your questions. All right. All right. Go ahead. Let's go ahead. So now we have multiple databases. Okay. Let's do some brushing on the basics. So databases, we got Oracle, SQL Server, Teradata, Sybase, etc. Okay. Now the languages SQL. Okay. Now this SQL we term it in different names when we are interacting with the different database. Okay. Now basically what are the operations that we do on a database? We do insert, modify, and
Hello, I am sorry to interrupt, Mahesh. Ashna from IT Learn team. We cannot see your screen, so can you please share your screen again?
one second.
Yeah, unable to see your screen, and even their chat messages for the same thing.
All right. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Sorry for that. Now, coming back, 1 second. All right. So, what are the operations that we will do on the database? Okay. One is the insert operations, which are the new records, and then we will be modifying them or either deleting them. Okay. Now, for each of the operation, we have specific queries. Okay. So generally, we term it as data manipulation language, which is like this is for more of reading. Okay. Reading, editing, and modifying. So which means you already have the data in the database. Now you want to do uh, um, some what do you say, reading, or you want to manipulate it. Okay, what do you call it as? Data manipulation language. Okay, so now for creation we have the data definition language. Now whereas controlling, we have data controlling language. We call these keywords as a part of data controlling language. Now for creation, right? So for definition, what we will use is what we will have to do. We'll have to create a table, right? Or create for table, and then you'll have to alter it, right? So what the primary purpose is for creation or for definition of that particular table, you will use DDL. Now for that, you will use create, alter, and drop, or truncate the table, or you can use rename and comment. Okay, these are the keywords that are used for defining the tables. Okay, now the content in the table can be read using select, inserting the data into the table, or by updating, deleting, and then merging couple of data, or some other. So these are not required. Okay, for the basic point, the four we'll discuss: select, insert, update, and delete. Now whereas for data controlling, we have the grant function as well as revoke. Okay, now on a high level to define, we are having definition language, which means for the data to be inserted into the table, what is required? For the data to be inserted into the database, what is required? You need a table. So whatever operations that you do on the table level are defined as data definition language scripts. Okay, whereas the data that is residing in the table, if you are doing the operations like reading, writing, or editing, or modifying, then those come under data manipulation language. So this is more of data in the tables, and this is more of table specific queries. Okay, please park your questions for the next 10-15 minutes, and then once I'm done, we'll let you know. Okay, let's not have a break here and there. Okay, all right. So coming back, so as I said, so for data, for more of what you said table, you are using the data definition language. Now for controlling is like you want to give access to someone or you want to revoke access to the tables. In the sense, say suppose there are some sensitive data tables where everyone or not all users can have a look into. So in such cases, you will be accessing, you will be giving the, you will be granting the access to the tables. So there you will use the grant statement. Whereas you want to revoke the access given to a person or an user, then you will be using a revoke command. Okay. Now from this training perspective, the primary focus will be on the DML. Okay. And and I'm assuming that many of you must be knowing what a DDL script, what is, how do you create a table and how do you drop a table and how do you truncate a table. Okay. So the primary focus will be on. Okay. Now I would like to ask few basic questions before I go ahead with the DDL scripts. Okay. Now we have a table, couple of tables. Okay. Where say suppose T1 is a table which has column 1 as primary key, and then we have C2, C3 as a columns, whereas in table 2 you have C4 as the primary key, and then we have C1, C5. Okay. Now the question is, which table has to be created first? And which table has to be deleted first? Okay. So these are the two questions. So T1 has to, okay. I would suggest all to be answered. I see only 5 of them answering right at this moment. Good. Excellent. So I see good count of people answering, but others also has to answer because that will help me to understand whether we understand the basics of the database or not. Out of 62, only 20 answered. Okay, for rest, is it a confusion or you didn't understand what is it all about? Okay. Okay, Hitesh, okay, couple of them didn't understand the question. Okay. So the question is, I have two tables that I'll have to create on the database. Okay. So the table 1 has C1 as the primary key and other columns C2 and C3. Now there is another table T2 which has C4 as primary key and has C1 also, which is part of table 1, and C5 as the other two columns. Now if I have to create the table, which table I have to create first? Okay, good. So the problem is you will have to understand few of the database concepts. I would suggest you to go back and look into the videos again. That's the reason I was specifically asking. All right. Now, so the answer is, as rightly 90% of you said, T1 should be created first. The reason being it has a column C1 which is being called in the table T2, right? So in order to have these values in the table, first I'll have to create T1 table and then I'll have to create T2 table. Okay. But when it comes to deletion, right, as C1 is the foreign key and is referring to table 1 T1's primary key. If deletions has to happen, first you will have to delete this table and then the primary table. Okay. Now the reason for asking this question is I just want to understand whether we understand the primary key, foreign key concept. As well as the constraints. Okay, constraints are something which will let you know if you have to do some operation, are there any limitations on that? So that's a constraint. So here there is a primary key, foreign key constraint. That's the reason we cannot delete T1 directly when it is having a reference in T2 table. Okay. Now I just want to understand whether you are, let me know if anyone of you don't know what a primary key, foreign key is and what a constraint is. Okay. Okay. For the benefit of all. Okay. So just let's take any of general definition of any person. Okay. So how do you identify a person? What is unique about a person that will define the person? The name. Okay. But name can any person can have same name. I mean multiple persons can have same name, right? Surname. Okay. SSN, DNA, mobile number, combination of first name and last name, or an email ID, license. Excellent. So there should be some uniqueness that should be defined, unique identification that should be defined, right? So which is generally we have the PAN card or SSN number or passport number. These all will define the uniqueness about that particular person, right? The same way for any table to distinct it from the other tables, okay, or to define what is the purpose of this table, a column should be defined which has unique values and differentiates other records. So such column is called as primary key. Okay, so the records or the rows in the table are uniquely defined based on this particular column, which means the characteristics is it doesn't allow any duplicates. Okay, now when it comes to say now this particular person has a lot of information that flows. Say suppose this person is buying some orders from Flipkart or from any online store, or this person is going to ordering food in a restaurant. Now if you see, the characteristics of his actions are different from one another, which means I'll have to store the data that is flowing through these actions in two different systems or two different locations. In the same way, even in the tables also, a characteristic or the data of these primary key cannot be residing in the same table. Simple example, as I said in the explanation. So this person who can buy food from online, so that will reside in one table, and the online shopping that is done by this person will reside in a different table. Now how do you relate these transactions? could understand or any confusion? Right. So these two tables are unique by itself, right? So based on the unique identification, you will be joining these two tables or these two actions, right? Let me write it. So shopping is one table and food order is another table, table 2. And unique identification going into master table. Now how do you relate both of them? As a thumb rule, we will have a primary key in this table as well, right? Primary key is shopping ID, say suppose. And primary key in this table is food order ID. Now how do you relate the shopping done by the particular person? You will have to have some reference to it in this particular table, right? So you will be using the primary key of this table here. Okay, so say suppose the primary key for this table is identification ID. Okay, so this ident ID you will be calling here, and this is called as foreign key. This reference key is called as foreign key. The same goes for the food table as well. So here also it is ident ID. So a foreign key is a primary key in a master table. Okay. So I'll stop here. I'm open to questions now. Yeah. So after once the question is done, we'll go ahead with the SQL. Now, yeah, shoot out your questions. I see a couple of hands raised. Hey, Claudia. Hello. Okay. Krish, you had a question? Hello.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Actually, I have registered for Selenium, but I'm seeing a PLSQL. So is it rescheduled someday, other day?
It's tomorrow. It's scheduled for tomorrow.
Achha, okay. No problem.
Okay. Thank you. And there was question from, I'm confused with foreign key. Okay. I see a lot of questions on the basics of database. Okay. See again. Alright. Let me do a quick session on database again. But I would actually rather suggest you all to look into the database videos that we already have. Alright. Okay. For the benefit of all, again, once again. So as discussed, let's take the simple example again itself. So the master table is, so the definition that the point that we are discussing is a person's detail should be defined. And how do you define? You will need to have a unique column that will define whether this person is unique or not. And what is that column? That's either PAN card or SSN number or passport ID. So that we are terming it as identity ID. Okay, this is my primary key in the person details table. Say person details is the table name. Now this particular person does online shopping, or he or she might be ordering the food online. Now if you see, these two details are unique by its nature. They two are not dependent, right? The only dependent factor is they are dependent on, I mean, they are related to that particular person, right? So how do you relate to this person? using the ident ID, right? So this ident ID will become foreign key for this table, whereas this one is primary key in the person details table. The same way in the food table as well, food order ID is my primary key, whereas the person details are to be fetched from person details table. So how do you relate both of them? Using the ident ID. So that's your foreign key in this table. Okay. Hope it answers your question, Padmaja, Durga, and others. All right. So at the end of the session, right, we'll let you know the videos that you will have to look before we start the actual session. Okay. Now there's a question here from Hitesh. Every table has to have a foreign key. It's not necessary that every table should have a foreign key. Now, if you take this person details table, there's no foreign key here. I mean, we might not be defining a foreign key, but for every table, there should be a primary key. All right. Now, why am I stressing all these points is when you define any table, so you are using DDL scripts, right? You are defining a table. So a table should have the definition of primary keys and their data types, the maximum length, all should be defined perfectly. Okay. Now, so we have discussed on the primary key foreign key relationships. Now, what else is most important is the characteristic of the column should be defined perfectly. Okay. Now the question is, so I'll give you a couple of columns. Let me know what is the type of column it is. Okay. Name, date of birth, salary, currency, and then I have a retina scan, a retina image, or thumbprint. Okay, I'll give it as thumbprint. Okay, so these are 5 different columns that I would want to store in a database. Okay, now what are the characteristics of each of these columns? Oh yeah, right. So you got the point. So I'm asking the data types. Excellent. You got me correct. Okay, name is either character. It's a characteristic or char or varchar. Okay, good. Date of birth is it's a date data type. You will have to define either in YYY or whatever is the characteristic YYY, DD or something like that. Okay, so it's good. Salary. Okay, few say it is a number. Okay, few say it is an integer. Yes, so it would be generally integer because you will have decimals as well, right? So we will keep it as integer. Okay, currency INR or a Australian dollar or USD. This is a CAR, right? Agreed? Now thumbprint. Thumbprint is an image, right? So how do you store the image? No, there's no image data type. We have either claw or blob. Okay. So images are generally stored in the form of claw or blob. Okay. Now, what is char? What is varchar? If you if you don't understand, I would suggest all of you go back and look into the different data types we have. This session is more about SQL. All right. Okay. So now, what is the purpose of discussing these characteristics? Is when you define a database table, you need to define each and every column that is going into the database, into the table. Okay. Now, if we wrongly define the characteristic of the column, how could it be an issue? Okay. So let's discuss it with an example. So in the above example, we have discussed that ident ID is the primary key, right? So in the person details table, the primary key is defined as char, or say suppose integer. Okay, whereas in table 1, ident ID is defined as varchar. Okay, now is this correct? Now when I'm relating this table's ident ID with the table 1 ident ID, will it be any problem? Will the conversion work? Okay, so say the example here is 1234.0. In varchar, I can have 123.40, right? This can be also termed as varchar. How many of you agree? See, an integer can also be a varchar, so there's no problem. So it is like higher to lower configuration is there. Okay, but whereas I defined it as varchar here, and I have defined it as integer here. Is it still a problem? No, it's not still a problem because my primary key is varchar. Foreign key, even if it is wrongly defined as integer, it's not a problem because it is referring to this particular table only, right? My master details are still present in this table itself. Agreed? Now, we will take another column. So in personal details table, I have mobile number, which is defined as integer. Whereas in table 1, I'm calling the same column mobile number. Here it is defined as numeric. Okay. Now is it a problem? Okay. It is not a problem. Why? Yeah. So I'm calling this mobile number in the table 1 as well. I have this here number as 81060666300. Here also it will come as for the same person 81060666300. The only problem when it comes is if I say it as 25.25, 0.25 if I say, then the conversion will not happen, and that's the reason it will show as 0.25 will be removed and will be shown here. But can a mobile number have like this? So the mobile numbers doesn't have decimals. That's the reason, though I have defined my data type wrong, it will still show as 0.25. Okay. Now is it clear? 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 it's okay in this case. Agreed? Any conflict or anyone contradicts with this? Okay. Now there is another column, salary. This is defined as integer here. Whereas in table 1, say suppose I'm calling that particular same column, and here it is defined as numeric. Now is it a problem? Yes. Now it's a problem because I can have a salary with decimals, right? Here when it comes, it will change automatically into 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 0.44 will be truncated. So the values will not be the same, right? So now all these points you should have a clarity when you define any of the table. Now you got the point why the characteristics of the column plays a vital role in the definition of the table. The implications of it is when you have to join these two tables using any of these columns, and when the characteristics are different, the data will not match. In that situation, you will have to exclude such records, which is not acceptable, right? So that's the reason data types play a major role when you have to write your SQL queries, both data definition as well as data manipulation. Okay. Now, one last characteristic of a column that I would want to discuss. There's one more thing called as maximum length. Okay. I am also poor at defining the length of each of the data type, but I would try to answer this. So we have char. What is the length of char? What's the size of the data type char? Okay. Okay. Char is 32. Good. Varchar is mm-hmm. 32, 255. It's 255 long. Okay. So it takes 256 length. Good. Okay. Okay. You cannot see the question screen. Is it shared now, Radhika? Others are able to see the screen, right? Yeah. So, okay. Radhika, you will have to check at your end. Maybe some issue. All right. So, char is 256 characters. It will hold that particular length of characteristics. Whereas varchar, varchar will also hold 256 characteristics. Okay. But the backend is, it is a dynamic memory allocation. What it does is, you don't need to allocate the static memory for these. Say suppose you remember the concept of cache, right? Where you will be having the regularly called data stored in your internal memory, and on need you will be using it, right? It's like your private browser, or sorry, it's like your semi database that is acting for your web application. The same way, when I say a column, it should have some length or some space allocated for it, right? So when I say char, by default, the space that is needed for 256 characteristics will be allocated. Okay. Now when I take a column, say married, yes or not. Okay, it will have values yes or no. Okay, what is the length of this particular values in this particular table or in this particular column? It's not 256. It's way less than 256, right? Now for these minimal values, I don't need to allocate 256. It's like I'm wasting the space. The solution for it is varchar. So it will dynamically allocate the memory needed for storing the values up to 256. So that's the reason we use varchar. Okay. The same concept even in the database table definition, we will use the maximum length that you need to use for this particular column. Though the data type says it can hold up to 256 characteristics, we confine based on the column characteristic to either some value. So I for this married column, I am defining it as maximum is 15. Okay, that's the reason, as I said, as it does not hold more than 15 characteristics, it is of no point of having that much length. Okay, so though the data type says it should have it should have up to 256 characteristics, as I don't use it in real time, I am restricting it. So that concept is called as maximum length. So any column will have maximum length defined these days, unlike olden days. Okay. Now let's take this problem statements in the same example. So here for personal details, I have defined it as 10, whereas identity ID is defined as 10, whereas this is defined as 8. So is there any problem here? You got the question? I have defined ident ID as having is varchar, but is of maximum length is 10. Whereas in table 1, ident ID is defined as integer, but its maximum characteristic is maximum length is 8. So is there any problem? Yes. I don't see answers from others. Yes, because if I have a identification ID with length 10, in table 1 when it is called, it would be truncated to 8, which is a problem, right? As it is storing only 8, so other two characteristics will be truncated, so it's a problem. So which means when you define the table, you will have to take ample care of these maximum length as well. Got it? Okay, so the question here is from Hitesh. So does data type for the same name have to be the same in all tables for join to work? Yes. The data type ideally should be the same across all the columns used in the multiple tables. Okay. So that's the reason we discussed about this example. In this case where I have varchar and integer, if the maximum length is defined as 10 and 10, I don't have an issue, though the data type is different. Okay, here it is acceptable. Whereas in this last case, integer and numeric, here the data type is different, which is not acceptable. In such cases, the data type should be same. So my point here is there can be few exceptions here and there because of the higher lower conversion, high data type to low data type conversion. Okay. Now there's another question from Anita. What if you are using in mobile number like +91? In such cases, you will have to change your data type. Okay, that's the whole point of this discussion, right? Okay, all right. Okay, so this is it about how do you define a table, data, a column, what are the data types and the maximum length. Now based on this, we will have to write a SQL query. So now I'll have to create a table, all right? So let's define the columns in it. So we'll take for person details itself. So person details, I have primary key is as ident ID. It should have it is a varchar which will have a maximum length of 25, and then I'll have first name. It is also varchar, and I'm defining it as 25. Last name varchar, again it is 25, and then I'll have mobile number. This is a integer. I'm just giving it as integer, and maximum length is 15. And then I have city. This is varchar, and I have it as 15 as the maximum. Okay, so I'm just defining only these 5 columns. If I do it, if I define it, how do I do in using the DDL script? Okay, so I connected it to Oracle database using Toad. This is my client. Okay, now what is the primary key in this table? This is the primary key. Okay, now the syntax for this is, how do I write this? Create table. What is the table name that we are using? Person details. Person underscore details. Now what are the columns that should have? First one is ident ID. Well, let me copy it there. So the first column is ident ID. This is varchar, right? The data type. What is the data type? Varchar. And what's the maximum length? I'm saying 25. And then comma separated. And then first underscore name. It is also varchar. And the maximum length I'm using is 25. Comma separate. Last underscore name. This is also varchar. And I'm having a maximum length as 25. Comma separate. Mobile. Int, and here it is 15, and last is city, which is varchar again, and having maximum length as 50. Okay, now you will have to define the primary key, right? So what is the primary key here? Primary key is ident ID, right? So I'll have to start this here with okay. Now I'm running it. Why is it failing here? So the general syntax is create table, the table name, what are the columns and the data types, and I'm closing it. Okay. So for those who already know, what is the problem here? Why is it failing? Seventh row at the end. Okay. Okay. So what's the problem here? The reason being, I'm not telling the answer is you will have to tell me what is the issue. Missing comma. Where is it missing? Is integer allowed? Yes. Good. So you should understand that Oracle is not having data type called integer. So what is the data type that we should use here? So how will you know we haven't used Oracle, right? So that is where you'll have to go and look into the list of data types that are allowed by Oracle and SQL Server. Okay. Now let's try. I'm not what do you say? I'm not saying that it is wrong. I just want you to understand what are the data types that are supported by different database. Okay. Now there are situations where each of the client that you're using might not show you the correct error message. Okay. So in this case, earlier it was not showing me with that the data type is used is incorrect. Instead, it was saying that my right parenthesis is missing, right? So the error messages are confusing. But for us to understand, you will have to understand what are the statements that we are writing in the database in the SQL query. Okay. All the time Google or Google will not help you. Okay. So as a homework or whatever you term it as, or some task for you, go and look into the what do you say into the go back to your Google or anything else where you will have to list out the data types that are supported by different databases. Okay, like as in this example, integer was not supported here, so we changed it to number and it is now working. Okay, all right. So this is how the syntax of create statement looks like. Okay, now let's create for the other table. We didn't define here primary key, isn't it right? So in the table, in the SQL query itself, we will be defining what is the primary key in this particular table. Okay, so for this you will have to use primary key and the column that you are using. Okay, now that I have already created this table, I'll have to alter this, right? So that's where I'll be using alter table name, and I'll give what is the primary key for this table. Alright. So instead, you can either directly give primary key in the table using create statement, or if you have forgot that the primary key is this, or if you want to change the characteristics of any of these table columns, you will have to use alter statement. Okay. So these are all part of your DDL script. Alright. Okay. So these are few of the concepts that we'll be discussing in the next session from DDL, and then we'll continue with DML. Okay, so first two sessions will be on DDL and DML. DDL will be on the first session, and we'll continue with DML, and the second session will be completely on DML. And the third session will primarily focus on joins and the basics of PLSQL. Okay. All right. So we are running short of time. If you have any questions, please post them. How did Toad connect to Oracle database? Okay. So Toad is one of the client that we'll use to connect to the respective database. Okay. So now if you want to connect, use new connection, enter the database that you would want to connect, and you will be given with the username and the password, and then click on connect. Okay. Or if you want to add a new connection, and if you want to add a new one, you will have to provide all these details. Okay. And then click on connect. So you'll be connected. So this is your SQL editor. So in order to connect to the database, what you require is username and password. Okay. Okay. So Mana, it's not Manoj, it's Mahesh. I'm unmuting you anyway. Can you raise your hand? Yeah, Sumana, I have unmuted you. You can go ahead with the question. Okay, can you tell me what is PLSQL by Pranay? Pranay, see again, okay. This was discussed in the first session. Again, I'm telling you. So SQL, you will have few limitations, like you cannot give on the run the inputs to the query. Okay, you will have to define the inputs in your query itself. Now, on the run, if you want to add a few of the conditions, like, or if you want to give user the option of giving an input, so that based on that input the query will be fetched, or say suppose there are uh, multiple statements that needs to be run as a package, how do you create them? Or there are lot of conditional statements based on which the query should be fetched, and the output of this query will act as an input for another query. How do you relate them on, how do you program them? So these all come under PLSQL. Okay, or say suppose I have a trigger based on which some procedure has to be run, so I have to combine all the scripts at one place and run them based on the trigger. So these, if you add these programming concepts to your SQL, that is your PLSQL. Okay, all right. Okay, what's the output for the query you did now? Okay, so the output of the query is the table is created. Now let me see if the table is created or not. Select start from person underscore details. Okay, see the table is created. If you see ident ID, first name, last name, mobile and city is created. Okay. All right. Yes, Samana. Go ahead. Yes, Samana.
This is Akila.
Okay.
So in one of my project, there is a screen. It has more than 30 fields.
Okay.
And the backend data is coming from, I think, around 6 tables.
Okay.
Only three fields are mandatory.
Okay.
So it's like, I think 2 of them are date fields and 1 is drop down selection.
Okay.
So, and other all fields are like, means any is null, is not null, equals.
Okay.
There will be, those are in alphabets only, not like, So, but the data is coming from different tables, right? In this situation, what type do you suggest? Means what scenarios for the data, especially not functionality wise I can write, but to validate the data, what do you suggest?
Okay. So the data that is coming will have some some unique key that will be relating to all these 6 tables. Okay. Out of which 3 are mandatory, you said, right? So I'm fairly assuming that one of these 3 fields will be the unique key that would be relating to all these 6 tables. Or maybe this is a customer information screen that you are looking into, or any
this is like I'm working in one of the pharmaceutical company. It's like they have like all the source fields. What is this ad hoc? This is like one of the ad hoc report.
Okay.
They're generating for the customers' information.
Okay.
So transformations, the
so
business will be,
Yeah, I got the part. So this customer ID will be there in all 6 tables, or any of one, at least one table. Now this customer ID will be acting as a primary key in one or more tables, and the columns that are present in other 5 or less than 5 tables will be joined with using the primary key foreign key. I'm pretty much sure if the date is coming, date might not be coming from the table where the customer ID information is there. Do you have any fair idea of what are the list of tables that you got there?
Yeah, it's like schema is UTL, and table names are like util line, ESI, util line, util line ESI, V package, market relation, RLTN, plan membership code.
Okay, I got the point. So you'll have to see what are the relationships between these tables, which column relates to the primary key foreign key relationships. If you see, then you will be able to understand how the data is flowing from these 6 tables into the front end. Okay. I would able to help you offline because we have another session anyway. So what you do is, can you mail me on the one I'm messaging you? I'll be able to help you offline. Okay. We'll discuss it offline.
Can you share your phone number or mail ID something?
I just ping you as well.
Okay, I think, sorry, what happened was today I didn't get any, invitation for the class. So I think I asked Sumana to forward it. So that's why I think you are able to see me as Sumana.
Oh, okay, okay.
This is actually, okay,
fine.
Yeah.
So I just emailed you my email ID. I just message me on it. I'll send you it.
Okay, so, can you give your phone number? Maybe that way it may be easy for me.
All right. I sent it as well. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. All right. So I'll have to wind up the session. There's another session planned. So thanks everyone for joining. Park your questions here. In the next session, we'll be answering those questions. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining. See you. Bye bye.